What's up, guys, and welcome back to another episode of Keeping Up with the Commanders. I'm Mason Kinnahan, and today we will be recapping and going over the Commanders' final game day from the 2023 NFL season. Today, it was a disappointing loss, like we were kind of expecting, a 38-10 loss to the Dallas Cowboys to cap off one of the most disappointing years in my life for the Washington Commanders, to be honest, because this from start to finish, I mean, it looked great. There were moments this season that were great, but most of it, I'm going to say like 80% of it was not great. So we're just going to go over the game, and I guess we can start off things with Sam Howell because his performance today, 19 of 27, 153 yards, a touchdown, 2 picks, sacked 4 times. Look, there wasn't anything that we really need to know more about Sam Howell. We weren't going to go into this game, even if he had a great performance. I think the decision has already been made into what's the plan now going forward at quarterback, because we've seen now we wanted a full sample size of Sam Howell. That's what we got this season. We got 17 games of him, and we now know what Sam Howell is, which again, me personally, I don't think he's going to be a franchise quarterback in the NFL. I think it would be pretty reasonable to move on from him this offseason. Maybe make him a backup, if not try and trade him away, which I probably wouldn't. I don't think there's going to be much of a market for Sam Howell. But if you can maybe get a pick from Sam Howell, but I think his best case to keep him on the team for a little bit. This new regime I'm going to talk about in a little bit is definitely going to play a big factor into what's next for this team. And today we didn't really learn that much from Sam Howell. It's kind of just been what's been all season. So he had his moments, and then second half really was bad. It was bad. So Howell led the touchdown drive. I think it was on the first possession for Washington. Second possession for Washington. First 2 drives. It was the third. The first drive and the third drive, and I would even say the fourth drive too. Both looked great. The first drive, 9 plays. Eric Bieniemy was calling some incredible plays. He was in his bag today. Like, it was it was more just, season's over. Let's just go around, have some fun on that football field. That's what they did for the first 3-4 drives of this game. First drive, went into Dallas territory, could not convert on. We went on 4th down 2 times, could not convert on the second one. Second drive was a fumble on the first play. Brian Robinson, uncharacteristic. That's fine. That's whatever. He does not fumble that much. It's kind of just disappointing to see. The third drive, one of the best drives, kind of came off the block field goal. 7 plays, 20 yards, led to the touchdown for Sam Howell. And then the fourth drive, 9 plays, 38 yards, which both those 2 drives, they got in pretty good field position, but got the field goal as well. So the first quarter and a half was fine from Sam Howell. Then you go interception, blocked punt, interception on the next 3 drives for the Washington Commanders. So that's not good. It's not good. So Sam Howell, 2 interceptions, both pretty much on him. Kind of threw the game away at the end. Again, lost 38-10. The defense wasn't there at all today, and that was to be expected. No Jonathan Allen, no Cam Curl, no Kendall Fuller. But Sam Howell himself was not impressed with his performance. But again, it doesn't really matter at this point. It doesn't really matter. He had okay pocket time for the first quarter or so. Then it kind of regressed through the second half. Took 4 sacks. This offensive line wasn't there either for a good portion. So the offensive line wasn't helping. No Andrew Wiley, no Charles Leno. So that's also to be considered. But again, we didn't learn anything new about Sam Howell today, and there wasn't much to go off of. So Eric Bieniemy was probably the best play. This is one of his better play calling games, especially at the beginning of it. But I mean, the offense in general today was not great. So yeah, I will say one more thing on the offense. Brian Robinson only getting the ball 9 times is unbelievable. I know he fumbled, but that's wild to me. Only getting it 9 times. He averaged 2.8 yards per carry, 9 carries for 25 yards, but still, he's been our best player on offense for the last 2 months, 3 months or so, him and Curtis Samuel. So him only getting the ball 9 times is I cannot. Don't even get me started on that. But now time to go to the defense, and more specifically Emmanuel Forbes, because I do not know what to do with this guy this offseason. I talked about new regime coming in. I talked about like maybe them coming in and moving on from some players. I don't know what's going to happen with Emmanuel Forbes. I'm actually going to put Quan Martin in this segment too, because Forbes and Martin today were two guys I had a lot of eyes on. We'll start with Forbes. Oh my goodness, Emmanuel Forbes, buddy. There is not many words to describe how bad of a performance he had today. It'll be interesting to see what his PFF grade is tomorrow, because I think he missed 4 or 5 tackles. He got hurdled on by Peyton Hendershot towards the end of the game. He was out there the entire time as our starting cornerback, getting burnt by CeeDee Lamb. Not burnt, but like just getting put in a blender by CeeDee Lamb constantly. It was bad. It was very bad from Emmanuel Forbes, and a guy that we drafted for his ball hawking ability and his ball skills is going to finish the season with 1 interception. An interception that, by the way, he almost dropped. He got it, and he almost dropped it. So this guy who led college in most interceptions in a single career finishes his first NFL season with 1 in a year where he was the worst rookie quarterback out of probably the top prospects. You look at Joey Porter Jr., Christian Gonzalez. I'd even have Christian Gonzalez, who had a torn ACL. He had a higher PFF grade this year with a torn ACL, because if you have a PFF grade, if you do absolutely nothing, you get a 60 PFF grade, right? Emmanuel Forbes' PFF grade is worse than that. It's worse than that. So I'd rather have Christian Gonzalez, who currently has a torn ACL and isn't even playing right now, over a guy like Emmanuel Forbes. I've been mentioning it since night 1 of the draft last year. Emmanuel Forbes was not the pick. Christian Gonzalez was the obvious guy. I don't care about scheme. It was Ron Rivera's plan from that morning when they showed the behind the scenes video of him in that car saying, "Oh, I'm going with Emmanuel Forbes if he's there." They were locked on Emmanuel Forbes. No matter what happened, they were going to draft him. That's exactly what they did. They were planning on trading up for Emmanuel Forbes, which is just embarrassing. So that's just embarrassing. And it was an embarrassing performance once more from Emmanuel Forbes, and it just brings you to like recognize this secondary needs a ton of help this offseason. Like I mentioned, no Kendall Fuller today, no Cam Curl today. Both of those guys impending free agents. We'll see what happens. I'm gonna predict Cam Fuller gets tagged. Maybe bring back Cam Curl gets tagged. And maybe bring back Kendall Fuller, but we'll see what happens. As far as Quan Martin goes, that's a guy that I think I really, really liked today. His performance was very impressive. He had an interception today, which was really good. He had a few pass breakups as well. He was kind of all over the field in that nickel safety spot. So I really liked his performance today. I definitely think. I mean, look what happens. Okay, we look at Emmanuel Forbes and his time in Washington so far over the course of this year. You had him, you started him for a little bit. He was getting beat up. You bench him, which I don't think was the right move. You bench him for multiple games. He comes back, plays okay in that Patriots game, was definitely his best game of the season, and then injures his shoulder, out for another month, comes back. It's just so off and on the field, off the field. There's no consistency from Emmanuel Forbes and no plan for Emmanuel Forbes over the season. Look at Quan Martin, a guy who, beyond I believe he had a concussion at one point this season, which he missed a few games with injury. Beyond that, he's been starting like 10 plus games this year. He's been out there, the amount of reps he's gotten consistently each and every game over the course of the entire season. You look at where he is in his development in the NFL versus where Emmanuel Forbes is, who's played half the snaps so far this season as Quan Martin. I would even say probably less than that, less than half the snaps. He was getting 1 snap a game for pretty much all of December. I felt like he was getting 1 snap a game. That, like, you look at the development of Forbes and the development of Quan Martin, you just see how far ahead in Quan Martin and how far ahead in his development Quan Martin is. It just shows how badly this coaching staff messed up with Emmanuel Forbes. So again, like the performance out of Quan Martin today, I want to see what's going to happen with him next season, because I definitely think he can be a viable starter in the league. and we'll see what happens if the new regime thinks he can be that guy at safety, and they wouldn't re-sign Cam Curl. I still think they will as the other corner, but again, Derek Forrest will be coming back next year, and that's a guy who had a season injury at the beginning of this season, which allowed Quad Martin to get a lot of snaps this year. So we have a lot of depth at the safety position. I like where we stand with Cam Curl, Derek Forrest, and Quad Martin right now. We'll see who they bring in as defensive coordinator and what their schematic, what their scheme is, and what they want to run with. As I know, Jack Del Rio and Rivera ran a lot of 3 safety looks, so we'll see what happens at DC. But yeah, let's just get right into it because Ron Rivera has finished the season 4-13. It's fitting how Ron Rivera came into this team in 2020. This team had the 2nd overall pick in the draft, and as the next segment says, the Commanders are finishing this season with the 2nd overall pick in the draft. So it just shows how fitting Ron Rivera has gotten absolutely nowhere. No progress on the field. In terms of field performance, on-field performance for the Washington Commanders. You start 2020 and you make the playoffs at 7-9. Next season, 7-10. Next season after that, 8-1. Are you making progress? You've won 1.5 more games. Still no winning record. And this season, just an absolute, it was bad. It was bad. It was bad from start to finish. As I'm recording this, he has not been fired yet. I don't think he's getting fired tonight. I'm recording this on Sunday night. I don't think he's going to get fired tonight. I doubt it because it's, as I'm recording this, it is his birthday, 62nd birthday, I believe. So I doubt he gets fired. I know Ron Rivera has a meeting with Josh Harris the day that this episode will be coming out. And if he does get fired, expect an emergency pod probably Monday evening talking about his firing. So it's going to be a wild next 24 hours for Washington. I expect Ron Rivera to be fired because after this abysmal 4-13 performance this season, he has lost the locker room. Jonathan Allen, we've seen the quotes from him. We've seen the quotes from Terry McLaurin saying, "Oh, I'm just running a lot of cardio out there." Jonathan Allen saying that he's sick of it, sick of 7 years of losing. It's bad. This locker room right now is bad. They were playing. Hold on. They were playing like some Boys to Men song after the game today. They were playing "It's So Hard to Say Goodbye to Yesterday" by Boys to Men in the locker room after the game. That's how bad this team is right now. That's how depressed this team is. Ron Rivera is not the guy. He's going to be gone in the next 24 hours. Get ready for the emergency pod that's going to come out on Monday evening when he gets fired, talking about head coaching candidates and stuff like that. Because I expect him to be gone. I expect Martin Mayhew to be gone. I expect Murray Herney to be gone as well. Josh Harris is here to clean out house. He's going to do it in the next 24 hours. I'm excited for it because it's going to be a blank canvas in 2024 for whoever comes in at general manager, whoever comes in at director of football operations, which I know has been rumored that Josh Harris really wants to hire a director of football operations to kind of oversee everything. So I'm excited because it's going to be a blank canvas, and it's really going to be the biggest offseason for Washington in my life for sure, because this offseason is going to set the next 10 years of this franchise, at least the next 5 years of this franchise, but it's going to set the next 10 years of this franchise, the next decade. Who's going to be the head coach? Who's going to be the general manager? How will this team get rebuilt in free agency? How is this team going to build through the draft? Which Washington, we can just get right into it. Washington has the 2nd overall pick in this draft, and they have the 36th overall pick in this draft, and they have the 40th overall pick in this draft. That's 3 picks before the middle of the 2nd round. This team is loaded in draft capital. If you go to Tankathon, they rank how big and how valuable each team's draft class is. The Washington Commanders have the 2nd most valuable draft class in terms of draft capital in the league right now. So, again, 2nd pick. There's many ways you can go with this. I am a big Caleb Williams guy. I'm going to go into more draft prospects starting next week with Senior Bowl previews because that's going to be coming up in 2.5 weeks. So get ready for a lot of content from the Senior Bowl because I'm excited. I'm going to be there. I'm going to be interviewing players and prospects, maybe future Washington Commanders. So I'm going to be excited for that in Mobile, Alabama in about 3 weeks. So get ready for a lot of NFL draft previews coming up over the next few weeks and over the next few months because We're going to be going over guys like Caleb Williams, Drake May, two guys that one of them is guaranteed to be there at number 2 when Washington comes on the clock in April. Guys like Marvin Harrison Jr., who is one of the best prospects in the draft, in my opinion. And even the tackles that Washington, if they were to trade back, could possibly go for. Alufa Shanu out of Penn State and Joe Alt out of Notre Dame. There is a lot of stuff Washington can do. Who are they going to go with their 2 second-round picks? Could they trade those second-round picks back into the first round? There's a lot of options for this new front office. And how aggressive does Josh Harris and company want to be in this draft? And how aggressive do they want to attack this offseason? That's going to set the stage for what's to come for the next 5 and 10 years in Washington. I'm pumped for it. It's going to be one of the busiest. I know last offseason was the busiest in Washington history, or 2 off seasons ago with the rebrand, the name change and everything. And now like this offseason in terms of on-field product, because all the off-field stuff, that's all gone now, luckily. But the on-field product, it's going to be one of the busiest off seasons in terms of how much this team is going to change. We look at teams like the Texans, and we look at D'Amico Ryans. He's going to be hosting a playoff game next week. Sorry, in his first year as a head coach in Houston, with a rookie quarterback in C.J. Stroud. They were aggressive in the draft. They traded up from the 12th overall pick, I think, or 13th to the 3rd overall pick. They were aggressive in the draft. They traded away their first round pick this year to go and get the players they want. That's a GM, that's a head coach and an owner that I want on my team. And it just shows you can compete in a rebuild. That's what the Texans are doing right now with one of the youngest rosters in the league. If not, I think it is it's not the youngest, but one of the youngest rosters in the league. So it just shows you can compete. This Washington team can compete next year. It's just, can Josh Harris hire the right people? Can those people that he hires sign the right players, draft the right players, evaluate the right players to be on this team in 2024, and at the same time develop young guys, possibly a new starting quarterback, most likely a new starting quarterback in Washington for next year, plus some of the other guys in the draft. Can they develop them? Can the new head coach develop them? The new coordinators develop them into becoming a team like the Texans are right now, who are competing for a Super Bowl in January. So that's kind of my thoughts on where we stand right now with the off season coming up, the draft coming up, because it was huge. It was huge getting the 2nd overall pick because, again, if you don't know that much about the draft, you really have 2 quarterbacks at the top, Caleb Williams and Drake May. By getting the 2nd overall pick, you're guaranteed to have one of those guys on the board when you choose. So it gives, I'm sorry, my voice is kind of hoarse, but it gives a lot of opportunities and a lot of different options for Washington in the draft, which I really like, because if they were to get the 3rd pick or 4th pick, if they were to beat the Dallas Cowboys, which for a second there they were up 10-7 at one point, but Dallas came back and scored 31 straight on them. So it's and then the Patriots, if they were to have lost that game, and the Saints, I know the Saints-Falcons game was a big player in Washington getting this 2nd overall pick, because since the Saints won, it gave Washington their own destiny, where with a loss, they would get the 2nd overall pick. Because if the Falcons won, then the Patriots were going to get the 2nd overall pick. So that just shows how close it was between the 2 teams. But Washington being in the same exact position that they were in heading into the 2020 season, we'll see if it's different. I hope it is, because this team needs it. And to wrap up this episode, I kind of just wanted to look at the season in review, because, again, at the beginning of the season, I talked about it. I was a believer in Sam Howell, especially after that Ravens preseason game. It looked like we actually had a franchise quarterback, and we're gonna be able to make a run. I mean, looking back to August, you had Chase Young coming back off of his injury, Montez Sweat, Jonathan Allen, Deron Payne on a new contract, all on that defensive line. You had the secondary that was rebuilt with Emmanuel Forbes and Quad Martin. The future was bright. It looked like their team could go to the playoffs if Sam Howell played them to it. But in the end, you start off the season 2-0 with wins over the Cardinals and the Broncos, 2 great wins. You lose 3 straight. And then from that point on, you lose two of your last 13. Oh, sorry, you win 2 of your last 13. 2 of your last 9. Wait. 2 of your last 12, I want to say. But I don't know. You end the season on a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, an 8-game losing streak. That's pretty much the end. You lose this game on an 8-game winning streak. There was a lot of potential with this team this season, and it's a big disappointment. But at the same time, the future is probably the brightest right now for Washington than it would be if we maybe snuck into the wild card as an 8-8 team. Ron Rivera remains the head coach for another year. You look now, Josh Harris, he's ready. He's ready to get rid of Rivera tomorrow, or I guess today when you're listening to this, and rebuild a team that he spent $6 billion on. So my voice is kind of gone at this point, but yeah. Thank you guys for sticking with listening to this podcast throughout the entire 2023 season. Like I mentioned, there is a ton of content still to come. This thing every week, every Monday morning. Plus, there's going to be some special episodes, like I mentioned, with some players at the Senior Bowl, some interviews with them. We're going to create a lot of content at the Senior Bowl with some other Washington content creators as well. And just the NFL draft, the NFL offseason. The offseason is really its own season in the NFL. It's a little bit longer, but when we talk about free agency, get ready for the emergency pod. I'm pretty sure by the time you're probably listening to this, Rivera's going to be fired. So get ready for the emergency pod tonight. And yeah, over the course of the next week or so, going to be going over head coaching candidates, GM candidates, director of football operation candidates, maybe. So that'll be it for this week's episode of Keeping Up with the Commanders. See you guys next one. Peace.